delighted to welcome the Editorial Director of Honest Reporting, Simon Plosker. Welcome to Modiin and Beyond.
Thank you, Rolene. It's fantastic to be here. It's my home city, so studio is only 10 minutes away.
Well, we have to present the best of Modiin, and we have it right here. Now, it has been a very, very busy year and tumultuous year as far as media coverage. And when it comes to Israel, we know that everybody's blood pressure goes up tenfold, because when it comes to coverage about Israel, we see inherent bias across many of the news channels around the world, and some of the stories, the big stories that we've seen this year, whether it has been the issue with Shireen Abu Akleh, whether it has been the wave of terror, everything from Whoopi Goldberg, her incendiary comments, some of them she made just this weekend, or whether it's Kanye West, or even the election coverage. When it comes to the narrative around Israel, we see a massive bias. And let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about the stories of the year, what you have seen, some of the trends that you've spotted.
Okay, so I think, I've been lucky in a way. I returned to Honest Reporting after a couple of years away. I was there for 14 and a half years. I went away for 2.5. So I came back in October. So I missed most of the year, which was probably a lucky thing for me, because
good for your blood pressure.
Plenty of things going on. I mean, we had a very, very short, if we want to call it a conflict in Gaza in August against the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And, we've seen the same sort of thing over many, many years. Israel responds to Palestinian terrorism. It launches an operation, and immediately the media goes absolutely ballistic about what Israel is doing. What happened this time, and it's kind of similar to in the past, the story, where did it start? Well, in this particular case, the real story starts with Islamic Jihad threats against Israel, and a lot of the people in the South, if you'll remember, the South was pretty much shut down for days due to the threats that PIJ were making against the Israeli population there. And it was only when Islamic Jihad started to actually move their forces into position, and it seemed clear they were going to actually launch an attack of sorts, that Israel launched its own attack, taking out pinpoint targets in the Strip. And that's where the media story started. Not where the actual story started, but the media story. And this is pretty much part of the course where the media ignores the stuff that's going on. We had, of course, a whole wave of terror in the time beforehand as well. We had a very, very terrible attack in Tel Aviv. So, there's the context there. But the context went missing because the media started the story with an Israeli attack on Gaza. So in that sense, Israel is falsely portrayed as the aggressor.
Now, Honest Reporting monitors media bias and responds accordingly. And thank God for organizations like Honest Reporting who do a phenomenal job of calling out double standards, lack of context, inherent bias. This is something that has been going on for decades now, not just for years, but for decades that your organization and many individuals have been saying to global media, hang on a minute, when it comes to this particular narrative, you don't seem to put it in context. You ignore a lot of the issues leading up to this. You publish effect rather than cause. You only have to be on social media to see that it is an absolute balagan disaster in terms of how the public start to respond to what's going on, because they react to what they see in the news media. We've even had situations like the BBC who've had to bury the Balin report. The Balin report being a report commissioned by a former editor to look at how the narrative around Israel is being written. Why do you think, after so many years after so many decades, with an organization such as yourself that is really on the vanguard of calling this out, and we're going to name the dishonest reporter of the year. You're going to get a scoop, guys. You're going to get it first here on Modiin and beyond. Why do you think the media still behaves like this?
Wow, Rolene, if I had an answer to that. Look, I think this year has been the year where I think it's been a breakout year for anti-Semitism. I have to say it. I used to say that to accuse the media of anti-Semitism is a very unsophisticated argument. A lot of the things we see are down to sheer ignorance on the part of the journalists, misinformation, and I like to think that a lot of the journalists are not inherently hostile towards Israel. However, what we've seen this year is things like Kanye West, for example, where blatant anti-Semitism has polluted our media, our social media, and it's not necessarily the anti-Semitism itself that has been shocking. It has been the reaction to it, or the lack of reaction. The fact that people have either tried to justify it, or explain it, or even agree with it. And that I think has been different this year to previous years, where if you could have an argument, for example, whether anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, that argument is now, in my mind, it's now a moot argument, because it's clearly anti-Semitic, because the people that have been dealing in the anti-Israel tropes and a lot of the criticism has moved into anti-Semitism without a doubt.
Now, if any of you want to respond or want to ask questions or give your comments about the media, we are on YouTube. You can visit our channel at Radio Modiin. Join the conversation. You can also WhatsApp me at 0525829090. I've got Simon Plosker. He is the Editorial Director of Honest Reporting. Thank God for honest reporting, because I think the media keeps you very, very busy. And we know how we all feel around the world, especially, as you said, at a time where anti-Semitism is absolutely rife around the world. And what I find very, very troubling is that when it comes to any other minority group, if that minority group speaks up and says, the way that you are framing the narrative, the way that you are telling our story, the way that you are allowing this particular kind of discrimination or racism to carry on is racist against us, and media channels, media platforms will respond accordingly. But we don't seem to see that when it comes to anti-Semitism.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think it's interesting when we see the media reaction to anti-Semitism, or I said the lack of reaction. Take, for example, Whoopi Goldberg, sort of 10 months ago now, where she made those horrendous comments that the Holocaust was a white-on-white, conflict, and she was severely criticised for it. But effectively, she had what amounts to a slap on the wrist. This was on ABC's The View, a very, very widely watched panel program on American TV. And she actually apologized. But then a few months later, she then goes on screen again and then decides that Hamas isn't necessarily a terrorist organization. She said, it depends on who you ask. Well, news for Whoopi, Hamas is not only recognized as a terrorist organization in Israel, but by America, the European Union, Canada, Australia, many places. And, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. It's a terror organization. And, so she got away with that. And then in the last few days, she has doubled down on her original Holocaust comments. And she has said that, if she was in the Holocaust, she would have been noticed because she's black, because of the color of her skin, but the Jews wouldn't have been noticed by the Nazis. They could have hidden from view. Well, I mean, that's just insane. Clearly, Jews were not hidden from view.
And this is a woman who's actually worked with the Simon Wiesenthal Center, knows that Jews were singled out, knows that, we're not homogenous, we're not all white people, that during the Holocaust we were forced to be singled out. We had to wear yellow stars, other insignia that identified us so that we could be marked for persecution. I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary that she has doubled down on this.
Well, it's extraordinary for sure. And I think what's going to be interesting is to see the reaction now from ABC. Quite frankly, I mean, she should be unemployable by now. But we've seen in the past, for example, let's take this. Mel Gibson is still making movies. This is a guy who also, came out with blatant anti-Semitism, and yet he still has a career. And you're absolutely right. If this had happened to any other minority, you can imagine these people would have been, cancelled for sure. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg's complaining she's been cancelled. Hello? She's still on TV.
She's still on a top-rated morning television. She's still making movies. She's got a movie, I think, coming out that she's about to promote. I mean, it's just, I was reading an article with Modiin. He's the comedian. He says, you can't threaten an anti-Semite to take them to the Holocaust Museum. They think, this is great. Where do I get a T-shirt? Sign me up. But there do have to be consequences. I see my engineer nodding his head emphatically. We seem to have some response. There's Roger Waters as well, and he gets a platform. Kanye West is still getting platforms, albeit on white supremacist type platforms. It's absolutely extraordinary. But we have a scoop coming in from Honest Reporting today.
We certainly do. So over the past decade or so, we were running the Dishonest Reporter of the Year award. We hadn't done it for a couple of years, but it has now been revived. And it is being released today. And Rolene, you are the first person to find out, of course, and the audience right now, who is the winner of this year's Dishonest Reporter of the Year award.
I love a scoop. You've heard it here, guys. Modiin and Beyond on Radio Modiin with our very own homegrown talent, Simon Plosker. Let's take a look at who is Dishonest Reporter of the Year. So what are the criteria for Dishonest Reporter of the Year?
Well, we could say the number of corrections we get, but that would be a little bit boring. It's really a case of I think, an obsession with Israel. And it doesn't necessarily mean an individual journalist. It could be a media outlet. This is also our opportunity to have a bit of fun here, because there are a couple of categories. So, for example, we've got the most repetitive correction. And that goes to all of the media who kept on calling Tel Aviv the capital of Israel. That was something that comes up the whole time. Whoopi Goldberg, who we've just discussed, she's in there as well, about trash talk TV. We've also got the harbinger of the apocalypse. Did you know the apocalypse is upon us, Rolene?
Apparently the end is nigh. Tell me more about it. The end is nigh.
It is, according to Thomas Friedman of the New York Times, who kept writing about Israel. And he wrote a couple of months ago, the Israel we knew is gone. The sky is falling. And we've given him that award. We've also got the biggest scoop of the year award. Now, guess what this is?
There's a bigger scoop than this?
There is. And we're giving this one to, drumroll, Iranian Press TV, because they did an entire segment on one of their revolting shows about Israel called Palestine Declassified. It's introduced by a bona fide anti-Semitic former British MP. And they did
Chris Williams.
Chris Williamson, yes, that's it, you got it. And he did an entire 30-minute segment on honest reporting. And you know what they found out? That some Israelis have served, including people at Honest Reporting, in the Israeli Defense Forces.
Well, when they profile you on a channel like that, you must be doing something right if you are annoying the anti-Semites.
Absolutely. And, that's not considering that, there's a mandatory draft here, it's not really surprising that a few of us have put on that olive green uniform. So I'm going to get now to the winner, and we gave it to MSNBC. And why did we do that? Well, they have been absolutely obsessive this year. We have Mehdi Hassan, who has a show. He invites Peter Beinart on. Now, Peter Beinart, for those of you who don't know, he used to be what we could describe as a left-wing or liberal Zionist. He is now, at best, I would call him an anti-Zionist. He believes in a one-state solution, verging on Israel having no right to exist. He's called Israel an ethno-state. And he went on with our friend Mehdi Hassan, who also is obsessive about Israel. And they had an entire discussion about Ukraine. And guess where that ended up? About Israel.
Because everything has to be about Israel.
Everything has to be about Israel. I mean, he used the Russian invasion of Ukraine to take pot shots at this country. And, it's all on video there. And Beinart himself cannot make it through an interview on any subject without shoehorning Israel into the narrative. He even went on a show discussing right-wing anti-Semitism. He did this on MSNBC, and this was where he said that Israel as an ethno-state was a model for white nationalists in the United States. For that's the kind of country that they want to create. Make it like Israel because we inspire white supremacism. I mean, it's just truly unbelievable. And meanwhile, we also have Ayman Mohyeldin, and he also rarely misses an opportunity to criticize Israel in all of his shows. He started defending the Qataris over the World Cup and said the issue really isn't about Qatar. We should be focusing on the racism in Israel, not in Qatar as well.
Because there was no racism whatsoever against Israeli journalists or Israelis in Qatar at all. And of course, Qatar is not responsible for some of the grossest human rights violations for the LGBTQ plus community.
Absolutely. So we've given MSNBC our award this year. It's what you should do now, because this is radio and it's a bit difficult to see. Go to www.honestreporting.com and the awards will be online later today, and you'll be able to see for yourself exactly why these people have won.
So a hearty Mazal Tov to MSNBC. You have won Honest Reporting's annual Dishonest Reporter of the Year.
Mazal Tov.
Mazal Tov. Can we get a round of applause for MSNBC? Simon, such a pleasure to have you in studio today. For anybody who sees something out there in the mainstream media, they want to report something that really, really raises the hackles in terms of bias, how do people report it or get in touch with you?
Yeah, go to our website, as I said before, honestreporting.com. You'll be able to contact us. Whilst we do go through the media every single day, and it's an exhausting process, we also rely on our readers and our audience to alert us to the things that perhaps we don't see, the things in strange places. I'll just give you an example. Wizz Air, the budget airline, recently in their in-flight magazine, and we spoke about the corrections, they said that they did a feature on Tel Aviv and called it Israel's capital.
I tell you, I don't know how you do it, because my nerves would be on edge all day. But thank God, I've said it before on the show, I'm going to say it again. Thank God for people like Simon Plosker and the team at Honest Reporting for being at the forefront in monitoring the media to ensure that Israel's narrative, and we're not a perfect country, we do make mistakes, but context, facts, words are important because they have real consequences, which we have seen this year. Simon Plosker, Editorial Director for Honest Reporting, please come back on Modiin and Beyond anytime.
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.